Hello there, everyone. My name is Jennifer, and I'm a Career Development Manager with WRDC. Today, I'm just going to go over an overview of our programs and services. I would like to begin with our land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge the territory in which we gather as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk, and we acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of the Beothuk, Mi'kmaq, Innu, and Inuit of this province. For 25 years, Women in Resource Development Corporation has been changing the culture of work in industries and sectors that have historically been inaccessible and unwelcoming for women. We are a provincial nonprofit organization committed to increasing women's participation in technology and skilled trades. We offer a variety of programs and services to address challenges surrounding the attraction, recruitment, retention, and advancement of women in these careers. Our career and employment specialists have provided thousands of girls, women, and gender diverse individuals with the knowledge, resources, and supports they need to make informed career choices and successfully train and advance in STEM and skilled trades. Our workplace DEI specialists have assessed and supported hundreds of employers, delivered training to thousands of employees, and provided direct links to skilled and qualified women. Our experienced research consultants have designed, implemented, and analyzed thousands of climate surveys, providing insight and evidence-based strategies to improve employee experiences, corporate inclusion, culture, and inclusion. WRDC is creating a local, diverse, skilled workforce and supporting employers in their efforts to create and maintain inclusive workplaces. WRDC is leading the way to gender equality in technology and skilled trades. We offer a variety of programs and services to address the challenges surrounding the attraction, recruitment, retention, and advancement of women in these careers. Our key activities include career exploration programs, education, outreach. Our STEMforGIRLS programs engage and empower girls and gender diverse youth with hands-on STEM activities, connections to role models, and the knowledge and confidence required to make informed career choices. We also provide career development and employment assistance services. Our certified career practitioners are located throughout the province, and they provide one-on-one career services and oversee the delivery of programs such as Orientation to Trades and Technology, Emotion and Momentum Plus, and our new Digital Skills Foundations programs. To ensure workplaces are welcoming and supportive, we also offer diversity, equity, and inclusion, consultation services, and training for workplaces. WRDC acts as an equity, diversity, and inclusion incubator. Our services support employers as they start or continue their journey to creating a more diverse and inclusive work environment. We also conduct research and collaborate and partner with key stakeholders to identify solutions to issues commonly identified by women in trades and technology. Please visit WRDC.ca and STEMforGIRLS.ca for more information on our programs, services, and supports. Thank you for your time today, and we hope you have a lovely day at TechConnect. Here's some contact information that you can use to get in touch with someone at WRDC about any of our programs and services. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Jen. That's for bringing us the overview of WRDC. Good morning, everyone. My name is Aisha Umar, and I'm the project manager for the Find Your Future in Tech project with WRDC. Thank you so much for being a part of today's event and taking out the time to be a part of today's event. We have, such wonderful lineups of programs today in the 1 hour and 30 minutes that we have. So I'm very sure it's going to be a very insightful time for everyone. As I said earlier, I'm the project manager, and I would also be the facilitator for the event today. So we have a good lineup for today. First thing, we're going to start with presentation from our partners. We have 3 partners who will be presenting today. We have Get Coding, we have ACENET, and we have SEM Limited who will be presenting today and will be sharing their program offerings as far as the Find Your Future in Tech is concerned, as well as opportunities in tech and opportunities that can arise as a result of participating in these programs. And then afterwards, we're going to have Johanna Brown, who is our role model today, and who would also be sharing, her journey to tech and, getting to where she is. So we're very, very lucky and, excited to have all these wonderful folks join us today and bring these presentations to us. And then once Johanna Brown is finished, we would then have time for Q&A. We have allocated sufficient time for Q&A as we want this session to be as interactive as possible. We want you to be able to ask as many questions as you would like. So we would open the chat. You'd be able to put your questions in the chat as we go. However, we would not be taking questions until after the last speaker, which is Johanna, has spoken, and then we can take all of the questions. So if you have any questions for Get Coding, ACENET, SEM Limited as they go, all you have to do is just put the question in the chat or note it down, and then you can ask during the Q&A, and we'll take as many questions as the time permits. And then once we're done, I will be back to give the vote of thanks. So that's basically what the agenda for today's event is. So we'll just jump right in, and I'm going to introduce our first speaker for today, which is Jan Mertlik from Get Coding. Jan is the CEO and co-founder of Get Coding, and Jan will be bringing the presentation from Get Coding today. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you, Aisha. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. Just to clarify, my name is Jan. It's not Jan, sorry.
I apologize.
It's all good. It's all good. I just, I'm used to it now, but I still like to clarify. Hello, everyone. Good morning. As Aisha introduced me, my name is Jan Metlik. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Get Coding, and I've prepared a short presentation to share with you here today. There we go. Can you all see? Good. Awesome. So yes, Get Coding. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the industry and our program. Quick 5-minute, short and sweet. Mostly here for the Q&A, so we can get more in depth about everything. So first, everyone's talking about tech. Everyone's talking about becoming a software developer. But why? Why should you consider a career as a software developer? So from our perspective, it's a great career to pursue because it's typically a great and flexible work environment and a pretty good starting salary. $60,000 is where most of our students end up being after the program. But one of the most exciting things about tech is there is no real salary or career cap. You can work for almost any company. If you put in the work and if you go out there and network and look for those new opportunities, you can find new and exciting companies to work for wherever you look. And there's real growth in this. In Newfoundland, we've seen a 30% growth in Newfoundland in recent years. And the numbers are similar when it comes to employee growth, the investment growth, or just in revenue growth. We've seen, close to 30% growth in all those areas. It's been really, really good. And the jobs themselves are fairly fulfilling. You are problem solving every day. You are challenging yourself and the team around you to solve critical issues around you. And because tech is always evolving, you always have to learn. So if you consider yourself a lifetime learner, software development might be a pretty good spot. So we talked about why. Now, how does our program actually help you get there? So the way our program works is very, very unique from any other training or educational experiences you might have had in the past. It's all based on building real projects. We call it a problem-based curriculum. Students choose projects they want to build, and then we pair them with a coach who is a software developer. All of our coaches are software developers in local tech companies. We have coaches from Verafin, Collab, MISA, Milk Movement, many others. And they meet with the student for 1 hour per week. During that time, they help them break down the project that they want to build into tiny little tasks. So the students, even though they haven't tried learning how to code before, they can try, solving those little tasks. So after you're assigned those tasks, you can code on your own time as much as you want, but we do recommend a minimum of 15 hours per week. There are no lectures, no videos, just coding. It's scary, but it works. It's sort of like how software development is done in the workplace. Get Coding is really a simulation of what it's like to be a junior software developers. We frequently hear from our students who get fully remote jobs that the most surprising thing is how similar Get Coding was to their actual job as it is right now. You meet with a senior, they give you tasks, and you go out, try to fulfill them. And the next week they give you feedback, and this continues. And we teach the most in-demand skills that are around Newfoundland Labrador. And because your coaches are software developers from the local tech sector, you're already, networking is integrated into the program. Expect that this program will take about 12 months. And through it and after the program, expect to get career preparedness coaching from us, where we help students understand how to stand out from the crowd and how and where to find jobs and interview prep and those things to make you feel confident when you're ready to enter the market. So specifically, most of our students are landing in jobs such as software developers, full stack developers, mobile ad developers, and web developers. We actually recently had a nice little post there a month ago about where most of our students landed. Software developer, full stack developer are obviously the two biggest ones. There's some other ones outside where students had previous skills that they brought and they were actually able to transition into a more unique role, specifically instructional designer there on the bottom. There was one of our students, her name was Jackie. She was a teacher before. She learned how to code and was networking, and suddenly there was a company that found out that there's a teacher who knows how to code. We need to help her. We need her to help us develop things. That's what a local tech company thought. So as you can see, we've had a bunch of people. We've actually had a participant of, I don't know which program Agita did at WRDC, but I believe she was a WRDC member. And so she recently found a job as a front-end developer in Prime Frame Logistics. Actually, that's a remote job in Edmonton. We've had Benicia get a job locally with Agri Solutions. We've had Chris find a job here locally with Net Benefit Software. Isabel, and we have many other success stories. So all that sound great, but what do we look for when we are looking to accept these students? So the biggest thing, well, three biggest things really are they need to be super comfortable with technology. If you ask the people around you to help you set up your printer when you get a new printer, because you are scared of what might happen if you press the wrong button, this is probably not for you. You really have to not be afraid to try and break things. That's entirely about what software development is about. You have to have a clear goal in mind. Make sure that yes, I want to be a software developer. That it's not just like, okay, maybe not. I don't know. If this is something you truly want to do, great. The third point, committed. You do need to have at least 15 hours per week. This is not it is a career life-changing program, right? So you have to commit the time to be able to really get to the end. So you really have to be committed. You really have to have those 15 hours. And as I slightly touched on previously, transferable skills are an asset. There's that's a great way of how you can stand out. So if you're transitioning from one career, having those skills are never lost. You can take those and help a local or a global tech company with their advancement with your unique skill set that you bring. One thing to mention in conclusion, there is funding available until March 2024, or until we give out all the seats, which is happening very soon. We are currently accepting people for our February cohort. We have still a few seats left, but if Get Coding was on your mind and you were thinking, okay, I'm thinking about applying, apply now. I think that by the end of October we will run out of seats for the Find Your Future in Tech scholarship. So don't wait any longer, because that funding covers the entire cost of the program. And that's my spiel. Thank you very much. I look forward to answering your questions at the Q&A at the end of the session.
Thank you so much, Jan. Thank you for that, for your presentation. Definitely very insightful. I'm now going to introduce our next speaker. And I'm going to introduce Grace Fishman from ACENET. Grace is the training coordinator for ACENET. So over to you, Grace.
Thank you, Aisha. Share my screen here as well. Okay, I'll be back. There we go. All right. So as Aisha said, my name is Grace Fishbein, and I'm the training coordinator for ACENET, as well as the lead for our certificate in advanced computing. So before we dive into what advanced computing is and what our certificate is offering, just want to give you a better understanding of who we are and what we do. So at ACENET, we are a nonprofit organization with a goal to support researchers at Canadian academic institutions and industry in their use of advanced digital tools and technologies. Training in these digital skills is a big part of what we do and all of what I do. And that's really how we build to this certificate in advanced computing. Advanced computing is very broadly, we're broadly defining it today as anything that cannot be done using your laptop computer. Now, it can also include some things that will be a laptop computer, but I'll get into that in a little bit more detail in a second. An example for the majority of our work is being able to access remote computers that are more powerful in order to analyze data or run simulations. So we specialize in offering training and supporting work in advanced computing. There are different applications of advanced computing. We focus on something called high performance computing, which is the use of a more powerful computer that allows you to complete things that would otherwise take you a significantly longer amount of time to complete on your laptop. So running simulations or analyzing data in minutes or hours, where it could take your laptop days or weeks or months to do. There are different uses of advanced computing. These include things like machine learning and AI, text analysis, and multiple different types of modeling. In terms of the relevant applications in industry and research, it can include things like 3D mapping, medical diagnostics and therapeutics, and smart technologies. The list is somewhat endless at this point. There's a lot of different applications out there with an industry of advanced computing. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the certificate that we're offering. So this will start in March of 2024. There is an application process to be accepted into the program, and we'll talk about that a little bit at the end. We will have online classes that will happen 2 evenings in the week for approximately 3 hours each session. Additional to the in-class time, you'll be required to commit some self-study time outside of class, approximately 5 to 10 hours, depending on your comfort level with technology and the material beforehand. But there will be a significant portion where you'll be required to do problems and assess the work that you're learning in order to make sure that you are learning the skills that it is that we're teaching. The program will be spread across 5 months, and this last month of this program will include an independent study project. That project will be an industry relevant problem that you're going to attempt to solve using applications and techniques of advanced computing. Modules will begin at an introductory level, and we're going to build through intermediate material and get to advanced level material. And ideally build you all the skills that you will need to complete that independent study project at the end. As a part of creating this curriculum, we have consulted with industry partners in Newfoundland and Labrador in order to make sure that our curriculum is relevant and that we're teaching you the skills that will best apply, when completing the program and then going to look for a job in industry. So what topics are we going to cover? A wide variety of topics here with a large focus in the programming language Python. A lot of these skills are transferable to other programming languages in how we will teach. We will use Linux and shell scripting. We'll do a lot of work with data analytics and visualization. We're going to use version control with Git. We will definitely cover advanced computing technique of high performance computing and parallel computing. We'll cover machine learning as well as some cloud, cybersecurity, and we'll be going over a lot of how to incorporate a lot of the skills that you're learning, communicate them very well, and so that they give you the best chance of succeeding in the workplace upon completion of this program. And then, as previously mentioned, you will complete that independent study project at the end, where there's some freedom to what you would like to do with that. Well, we will be suggesting some ideas from industry. So those that complete the program will become much more comfortable and confident with a lot of these technical tools, be able to be in a room and see a problem and understand the potential solutions to that problem using advanced computing techniques. Be able to prove your ability to learn new technical tools quickly and use the adaptable skills from the tools that we teach. And there'll be a lot of focus to make sure that once you're finished the program, you have a really strong ability to think critically about solutions to problems that you see and hone your problem solving and critical thinking skills. All right, the best news to this, that the timing of this presentation is that we have just opened applications last week. I'm going to ask, I think Yasher can post the link at the bottom there into the chat. Okay, applications will be open from now until November 12th. The application package requirements first require you to be eligible. If you're not sure about the eligibility requirements, have a look at TechNL's Find Your Future in Tech program, just to make sure that you qualify under those first. Then you go to that link that Yasher shared. You'll be required to complete an application form, finding a little bit more about you and your motivation, and really as much as you can tell us about your commitment to really diving into this program, taking on the challenge, and completing it with as much success as possible. And then we also require you to, once you've completed that application, to submit us a CV or resume and a cover letter. We will notify successful applicants in December and January, and we will only be accepting up to 40 participants into this program. So we encourage you to have a look at that if you're interested and try to apply sooner than later. If you have any questions, you can email us at certification@ace-net.ca, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have on that. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Really happy to answer any questions in this presentation at the end.
Thank you so much, Grace. Thank you for that great presentation. All right, just for the sake of those who are just joining us, please feel free to, the chat is now open, so please feel free to drop your questions if you have any as we go. And then at the end of all of the presentations, we would have some time for Q&A, and we'll be able to answer your questions. All right, so we'll now move to our next speaker from SEM Limited, and that's Eleanor Power. Eleanor is one of the course instructors at SEM. Over to you, Eleanor.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. And I think joining me as well, I have my colleague, Eric Aylward, who's also one of the instructors for the course that we're providing. So it's myself and Eric, and we do have another instructor, Tyler, who is not here today, but he will be there for the course. So just wanted to, let you know a little bit about the program that we're running. And we have been running the first cohort this term. We started in September, so that's ongoing already. We have 25 learners already, and we will be accepting just a couple more to fill our next slot in January with another 25 learners. And we have maybe just a few spaces left there coming up. So our program with TechConnect is an interactive digital mapping, ArcGIS training program online. And we will be teaching a lot of the basics of how to get involved in using that software. So Eric, if you wanted to move me to the next slide, please. Yeah, just to tell you a little bit more about who SEM is. SEM Limited is an Indigenous owned environmental management or consulting firm. It was founded in Nain, Nanatsiavut, and as an Indigenous owned company that started in Nain, we also continue to work hand in hand now with other Indigenous communities in this province and throughout the country. And SEM, in fact, stands for Sikamut Environmental Management. And Sikamut is an Inuktitut word meaning people of the ice. So that first project that got us started many years ago was actually making ice bridges for Inuit in Nain. And we think that this ability to situate ourselves within the local environment can be amplified by learning about geography in which we live. And that's why we think that learning about GIS can be so helpful. Some more information about some of the Indigenous peoples that you might find, and especially in relation to maps. I have just included the native-land.ca website there for some great examples of maps if you're curious. So feel free to check that one out. And if you are not familiar with GIS, what is GIS anyways? GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems, and there are many different versions of GIS available. Most people these days probably use GIS, whether they realize it or not, if you use things like Google Maps. And it is a technology to model the world around us that allows you to capture, store, analyze, and display geographic information on a digital map. So rather than just your flat paper map, we're taking our maps online, and that makes them really interactive and easy to share and change. And so a wonderful feature, we can even add temporal data to maps nowadays. So understanding relationships and interactions with Earth's different systems involves collecting data about entities and locations. And that type of data could include things about the terrain, the environmental information, or something like population information, for example, but there are just so many different ways that GIS can be applied, which we are discovering each week in our course, as we have been inviting different guest speakers from local organizations in different fields to come in and talk to us about how to apply GIS regularly. So GIS can analyze that data in visual ways, which means it helps us better understand patterns, anomalies within patterns, outliers, and spatial data to gain insights that we might not otherwise recognize just from looking at something like a chart or a table or a graph. And when we can, at a glance, look at information and understand the trends and how the different data points are related, it allows us to be better able to solve real world problems. And within the world of GIS, well, what is ArcGIS? And ArcGIS is a suite of GIS software that is offered by a company called Esri. If you're familiar with Esri, they're sort of the go-to brand name of GIS. A lot of people who work in GIS would be pretty familiar with them. You can kind of think of Esri as the GIS equivalent of Microsoft, and you can kind of think of ArcGIS as the equivalent of Microsoft Office 365 software like Word, Excel, PowerPoint. It's pretty ubiquitous. Everyone is pretty familiar with it, or a lot of people do use it pretty regularly. I kind of think of Esri as like the Band-Aid brand of bandages. It's just almost interchangeable and synonymous with bandages, and Esri with GIS and ArcGIS. So there's lots of similar software providers out there, but Esri is definitely the most recognizable go-to one. And what we have found is that Esri has a great load of information available. And you can absolutely go to Esri and do online learning with them and take courses in all different kinds of aspects of ArcGIS if you so desire. But what we've been finding from many of the people that we've interviewed who have applied for our courses, they've tried Esri courses on their own, and it's so vast. There's just so much information. They found themselves in a place where they almost didn't know where to start, or if they were practicing on their own and they got stuck, they didn't know who to reach out to. So I think the benefit of having Esri there is great, but also to be able to connect locally with the community of learners and with local instructors and the local professionals that we will be networking with in some of our live sessions as guest speakers. You have a basis place to start, and you can go and get help from each other and from us if you do get stuck. So I'll turn that over now to Eric. If Eric wanted to tell a little bit about the example that we have, he's just showing a virtual tour there.
Sure. Yes. Well, I think if you want to mute yourself there, I think I'm reverberating through your speakers. So it's just a quick little demo. This is pulled off of online, and it's just sort of showing that you're not limited to 2 dimensions when you're working in this sort of software. You can actually start to work in 3, and it offers different benefits, like in terms of giving a little more context for areas like height and terrain, and you can sort of build out interactive experiences, which is all stuff that we cover in our course there, as well as more typical 2D maps as well. So the first part of the course, which is covered by Eleanor there, it's sort of the course is split into 3 sections. So the first section covered by Eleanor is sort of theory behind the basics of map making, geographic literacy, and that's to prepare you more like on a conceptual level for the second and third sections of the course. And one of the key parts of the course is sort of collaborating and interacting with other learners in Microsoft Teams. So we have like a little community built out there where people contribute to discussions and chat with other students and chat with us there. Then in the second part of the course, it sort of gets into the like core ArcGIS functionalities, and that's ArcGIS Online, which is the web-based portion of like ArcGIS's offerings. And then we also cover ArcGIS Pro. So that's like the desktop version where you're doing, you're building maps out, doing analysis and processing and that sort of thing. And then in the third section, it goes a little further, and it covers using one of their apps called Story Maps to be able to tell stories. We cover building map-based apps, and then also working with three-dimensional data like 3D meshes and point clouds. Then, as Eleanor mentioned there, you can absolutely go after Esri's proper training. They have a lot of great resources. One of the things is that on their learning paths, they cover the instructor-led courses. Sometimes it can be north of $5,000. So then, fortunately, with our offering here, we support 50 learners spread across 2 terms. And that's the supports there include access to hardware. So we provide a laptop if you need one. And we also pay for access to the ArcGIS software suite. And we have instructional support from our course instructors there as well. The target audience, it's equity priority learners who want to use GIS to augment their current or future occupation or area of study. And we're not offering sort of like a standardized certificate. It's a certificate of completion. And one of the core pieces is developing portfolio pieces. So that's like actually building out maps or story maps or apps or what have you. And you can kind of think of it like a boot camp where you're not necessarily going to come out on the other end as a GIS analyst, but you're going to quickly establish like baseline GIS skills, and you'll be able to use that in your workplace. And then things that we've touched on or that we've sort of seen upcoming in the future in terms of interesting opportunities are in the subjects of stakeholder consultations. So using GIS to engage with communities about projects, environmental conservation. There's a couple applications there, sort of analyzing terrain, maybe land cover over time, that sort of thing. And then also looking at citizen science as well, where you can use and build out data capture apps where people can submit data to sort of like a larger database where everyone can view it. So that might be more in the context of reporting ice conditions, maybe in the winter, with just considering climate change's effects on, sort of traditional lifeways like that. So it's pretty interesting applications we're seeing now and in the future. And this is, of course, in addition to like normal sort of GIS analysis and sort of more geomatics oriented stuff there. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to the presentation there. If you're interested, you can reach on out to education@SEMLTD.ca, where myself, Eleanor, or Tyler will be chatting with you to get you, hopefully good to go in the course.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you, Eleanor, for that presentation. Again, just to recap, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or just note them down. And after our last speaker, we're going to have 30 minutes for Q&A. So we'll have more than enough time to answer all your questions. All right, so we're going to move to our final speaker of the day, and that is Johanna Brown. But before I invite Johanna Brown, I'm going to go ahead and just read Johanna's bio. Based in St. John's, Johanna has been working in technology sales for the past 13 years, working with clients across North America. Johanna currently works in enterprise sales at Verafin, and she is the vice chair of TechConnect, and she also consults with the startup community, helping companies create their sales playbook, expand their client base, and hit their financial records. Johanna has worked across many industries, including highly regulated industries like healthcare, cybersecurity, financial compliance, and GovTech. Johanna thrives on creating value-added companies and their respective customers and users, enabling them to increase their growth. Johanna is an advocate for increasing diversity and women in technology. She advises and coaches individuals she advises and coaching individuals looking to enter the tech sector or take on a new role in the tech sector by helping them find their transferable skills. Johanna holds a Master's of Business Administration MBA from Memorial University in conjunction with University of Tasmania in Australia, which coincidentally is where she met her wife. They now both live in NL and work in the tech sector. It's awesome. So we're very, very lucky to have Johanna join us today. So over to you, Johanna. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much. And thanks for the introduction. Really happy to be here today. This is kind of for me, the converging, my Venn diagram of all the things I love: tech sector, promoting, diversity in the tech sector, and also how to actually enter the tech sector. So Aisha mentioned, some of the programs, I guess, and everyone's mentioned here some of the programs TechConnect has ongoing. And so for me, I joined TechConnect, which is our provincial tech association, about 5 years ago. So I'm the vice chair now, and even in those 5 years, it's really been incredible the growth that our tech sector has seen. So I just want to touch on that real quick, because everyone here has chatted about the Finding Your Future program, and so Coding, ACENET, SEM, they've all talked about the Find Your Future program. And there's the main goal of that is to upskill over 2,300 Newfoundland and Labradorians in the tech sector. And that's very important right now. One, because our tech sector is growing a lot. Two, because there's a lack of diversity and we have a strong focus to increase that in our sector. And three is because really, I would say every company now is a technology company. So we talk about that a lot. So I think I didn't realize until I started working with more students recently that the word technology, the word innovation, and the word entrepreneurship can seem a little bit cumbersome or can seem a little bit scary, but really any job you work in now, you're going to be working in a technology enabled environment. And so leaning into that tech is what's going to kind of move you throughout your career. And then there are companies that are straight tech companies that are building technology and bringing it to the market. But if you're in any industry, if your focus is in climate change, if it's in oil and gas, if it's in fisheries, optometry, like name a sector, they're using technology now to become innovative. So it's across the board. And so skills that you will learn for the tech sector, really, they're going to be useful for you forever, essentially. So that's one I want to talk about. That was a big announcement. And we're starting to see those programs come out now, which is really exciting. That's actually going to actually change the landscape of our province, which is very exciting. The second piece around TechConnect is that we also announced funding late last year for our first provincial technology building. So our first innovation center, and that is in the works right now. That's under construction right now. So Newfoundland and Labrador would have been lacking that. I'm pretty sure every province has had an innovation center at some point. And so, but again, it's kind of a commitment from federal, provincial government, from our association, from our membership, that we need more spaces to convene. We need more spaces to support innovation. So that is a really exciting thing. So imagine the end of last year, we're announcing 2,300 folks are going to get upskilled or reskilled in all different industries. And there's going to be an innovation center in the next 12 months. And that is a big change in our landscape. So that kind of brings me into my career a little bit. So I joined tech. I'm from Newfoundland and Labrador. I'm from St. John's. And I always kind of thought that when I finished school that I had to move away to get a job. And so that was always kind of my understanding. And then when I finished school, there was a job here. And so I took it. It wasn't in the tech sector, but it was a foreign industrial supplier. And it was right when Hebron was being announced. And so what I learned there is a proposal skill set. So we were writing proposals to big oil and gas companies at the time. And from there, I took that one transferable skill set, which was proposals, and that's how I joined the tech sector, because a tech company at the time needed a proposal writer, and it happened to be for oil and gas. So that's kind of how I moved into tech. And ever since then, I've been a huge advocate for just finding your transferable skills. And so I think while we've talked a lot about development skill sets, I'm here to also chat about that you don't need to be able to code to enter the tech sector. So every single type of job is needed in the tech sector or in a tech-enabled company. And so my particular background is in business. I happen to join sales, and that's what I've been doing throughout my entire tech career. But if you had said to me, even when I was in business school, is this 100% your passion? I wouldn't have known that. Like I for sure would have never answered that. I would always have considered myself a generalist. So I always, when I did something, I kind of went all in on it, but I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. So when I talk to my wife, she's passionate about science, passionate about animals, and she's an ornithologist. And so that forever has been like, for sure, like that's what she's interested in, and that's what she kind of built her career around. I know other people who are really passionate about whatever it may be, sports, something, wellness, whatever that may be, and they knew that their career was going to be in that. And I was not that way. I would consider myself a generalist to this day. What I've been obsessed with, and I think is understanding a little bit about a lot. So I think I'm pretty curious by nature. I want to understand how things work. And I do think that also when you kind of get your chance, or when you get whatever that entry point is into whatever role you have, whatever your career is, that you go all in on it, right? So if you're going to do something, go all in on it and learn as much as you can. I think there's a healthy mix now of technology and technology-enabled companies in our province. And so you have a vibrant startup community, which didn't exist 20 years ago. You have some of those smaller companies becoming mid-sized companies. You have some mid-sized companies from 10 years ago that have become big companies. But we need more of the mid-sized companies. But in all of those companies, I think what is valued across the board, that is not a technical or a soft skill set necessarily, is the ability to pick up something and run with it. So everyone's busy, everyone's jobs are busy. And so I think what's valued a lot is people who will take ownership of things and kind of move the ball forward. So when I joined tech, so I'm not technical. When I joined tech, I went to my very first meeting, and we were doing custom developed solutions at the time. So this was almost 15 years ago. The world has moved a lot more to off-the-shelf solutions or solutions that are already built. So you wouldn't really go in and build a custom developed solution now necessarily. But when I went in, literally on the screen was, we were talking about developers. And so .NET and Java. And I wrote down .NET in my notebook, and I wrote down Java. And I went back and I Googled it. I mean, that is how little I knew about tech when I joined tech. But what I did was I talked to people, I educated myself as I went. People are really open, I think, to like sharing their skill set. I went and talked to lots of developers. I went and talked to lots of people in different disciplines, and I learned a lot along the way, right? And so that's always been my mentality. The other thing I'll say for the folks who are more on the business side, which I fall into that category, although now I'm proud to say I can hold my own on on some technical discussions. I'm not going to code, but I can work with folks. The other thing I'll say is that there's kind of a misconception, I think, maybe on the sales side of things, right? So if you had told me you're going to go work in sales after I finished my MBA, I would have said absolutely not. Like, that makes no sense. Sales people are salesy. But what I have found out is that actually that's not the case. So salespeople are often leaders in a lot of your organizations. Look at your CEOs, your founders. There's always a business leader in every organization. And why that is because people who buy software, people who bring on new projects, they have to understand things from a business case as well. So when I work with very smart developers who know their things, who are excellent, I call myself the litmus test a lot of the time. Like, can you tell it to me in a way that I understand it? Because if I can't understand it, the chances are that the person we're talking to cannot understand it either, right? So maybe it's a bit too in the weeds. Maybe we just need to put a bit more common language around it, whatever it may be. But when I joined tech, I thought that was a weakness, but that's actually a strength. And so, it's not about, everyone has a role to play essentially. And while, most definitely there are development skills needed for sure. That's an excellent career path as well. There's also a lot of business skills needed. So if you're working in another company, if you're in finance, HR, accounting, sales, customer success, whatever it may be, your skill set is valuable there. Your skill set is valuable in a technology enabled company. So I would say, if you take one thing away from anything I say today, is that I'm very convinced that everyone has more skills than they think, and that if they want to join the tech sector, they just need to find their entry path into tech. And so there's a lot of things you can do. So I've coached a lot of folks on how to move over into tech. There's certainly a lot of kind of not just entry roles, but really kind of clear paths that you can get into. So, I talk to folks who maybe development isn't what they're interested in, but they are interested in tech because it can open a lot of doors for them. And you can do a lot of cool things. I mean, I've been based here in Newfoundland for the last 14 years. I've almost worked exclusively with clients in the US, a lot in California. And I always thought, okay, when I say I'm from Newfoundland and Labrador, they're not going to quite get it. Most people know where we are, most people, there's not it's okay, right? Like, you can work here and have a very fulfilling career. So, I've sat in St. John's, Newfoundland, and I've talked to some of the biggest states and cities in the world, helping them deploy technology that's going to help their citizens. I've sat here and I've gotten to work with some of the C-suite for any Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 kind of common names that on how they're going to move their tech programs forward. And so it's really less about geography and more about skills and offering, right? So that's the whole point of tech, I think. When you talk to any company, it's not necessarily about, here's my product features 1 through 10. All they talk about is the problems they solve. So any technology company is talking about problems they solve, and they got into that industry because they can solve a problem. And they're in that industry because they can solve a problem. And they have this ongoing curiosity. Like, if I can do it, great. But you're never completely satisfied, right? Everyone is very curious, like, how can I do this better? And also, you're going to learn as you go. So there's a lot of things you're going to learn as you go. And that's completely okay, right? So when I think of sales, I always think of it in terms of what I call like a value-based selling approach. You're not there saying, will you buy this from us? You're there saying, I can help you solve a problem, and I know this is a big problem for you, and here's how we're going to do it. And so it's a very like one-to-one, like helping them move their program forward. I worked for a cybersecurity company that was based in California when the pandemic kicked off, and we were working with some of the that's when we were working with some of the bigger names. And so companies, and we always said, like, you can have the biggest, best title ever. You can be the CEO of TikTok, you can be the director of whoever it is, top oil and gas company. And I think in sales, we always say, like, everybody is someone's aunt or uncle, like everybody, if you're going in knowing that you can solve a problem for someone, then you should really feel confident about talking to anyone on planet Earth about how you can help them solve their problem. And so that's kind of the approach I think I've seen the best folks take when they're bringing their product to market, when they're trying to solve challenges. And then the other thing, I guess, is in terms of, I guess, how you sell yourself. And so I'm a big advocate for increased diversity in the tech sector. Women, equity deserving groups, everyone has a place. What I find often is that there is definitely kind of an underselling of skill sets, right? And because you don't need to have everything figured out, you will learn things on the job. That is the prerequisite, right? But I think having an idea on how to promote yourself is a really great thing. So one thing I'll say, which is a gate and a barrier right at the beginning. The way job descriptions are written right now, they're not written in a way that's very inclusive all the time. And so especially for equity deserving groups, we see people not applying. So if something says you need 15 years experience and I've seen someone with 13 years experience not apply for something because they take it so hard and fast. And it doesn't need to be that way, right? So if you have an aptitude, if you know that you can do a good job, I would definitely encourage anyone to reach out to their network to get even a second glance, someone to take a second look at what they're applying for, reach out to someone in that company to get an idea of what that looks like and apply. The worst thing that can happen is they say no. So that's number one. There's always a barrier to folks kind of not taking that first step. And number two, and this is for anybody, is that you need to make it so that it's very easy to understand where you're matching job descriptions. And so to just kind of have a laundry list of things you've done that aren't matching job ads, that's another barrier. Like, I'll speak for myself. I have written and read many proposals, many resumes. I did that for a long time, and I am lazy, and most people are lazy. And so when you get that, you have to really easily be able to kind of identify, here's what matters, here's what matters. I mentioned my wife is an ornithologist. She's a scientist. She works in the tech field now. And what she did is she found her transferable skill set. So she did a lot of scientific writing throughout her career. And she realized that kind of same aptitude and that same attention to detail, that same mindset in very technical writing is very applicable in the tech sector as well. And so she found, she picked that one skill that was very prominent in her experience and she applied and now she works in the tech sector as well, and she loves it. The other thing, I guess, is that when you develop skills, so whether you do become a developer, whether you want to enter tech through a different non-technical background, there is a lot of room to kind of find your niche and find out what you like. I know I was talking to one developer a few months ago, and all she wanted to do was work with climate change companies. So she knew she was going to get her technical background, and then she had a laundry list of climate change companies because that's what she believes in, and that's where she wanted to work. And so, you can really kind of like mesh both your worlds together in terms of where you want to go with your tech career. I think for most people, it's how do you like take your first step in. A year ago, the TechConnect Find Your Future program didn't exist. So it was a harder entry in, right? But now there's going to be, I highly recommend for anyone thinking of taking a technical path to go look at that. They're funded training. It's for people who need it, but also people who are maybe in a sector who want to upskill. So there's lots of kind of different ways. And then for folks who are not technical, who don't have an aptitude to become a developer, there's also lots of paths. So just kind of look at what you've done, and if you need help finding your path forward, there's probably lots of people in your network or that can help out with that. So Aisha, I'm not sure how we're doing on time. I mean, I can talk all day, but I'll double check with you.
Awesome. We're good. Thank you. This has been very insightful. I think one big takeaway for me from what you said is that it's not really about the geographic location, because as folks who live in Newfoundland tend to feel like, I know sometimes I feel like, oh my God, I hope I'm not missing out on opportunities just because of where I am located. And, you know, and you did say it's really about, you know, the skills that you have to offer. So it's really important to keep building on that and that. So that's really awesome. Thank you. So we're just going to take a few minutes to take some questions. So again, if you have any questions for any of the speakers, Get Coding, ACENET, SEM Limited, and Johanna Brown, who is a role model for today, just pop it in the chat and I would take the questions. But in the meantime, I'm just going to start with some of the questions that we have collected, and that's whether they were sent directly to WRDC or questions that we have received over time regarding the tech industries, opportunities, and for the programs as well. So I'm going to start with ACENET. And some of these questions may not be directly related to the program offerings, but you know, if you can tie it back to the program somehow, please feel free to do so. So for ACENET, what skills, training, experience, and personal characteristics do you feel are high priority for tech companies in NL during recruiting? So in other words, what roles are tech companies recruiting for?
Okay, good question. Lots of different parts to that. I'll try to keep it short, and then I think probably Eleanor and Jan could also jump in with answers to this one, I'm guessing. So one of the biggest things I would say is once you have a skill in something in tech, then you can expand upon that and learn other skills more easily, right? So you do need to dive in with something, right? So I mentioned earlier learning Python. That's one programming language. If you can start to learn that, you start to understand how to interact with the computer. Once you understand that, it's easier to pick up something else. So that's my address to the tech skill part of that question. In terms of the other transferable skills, and Johanna talked about this a lot, the better that you can communicate with other people, whether it's people at your same technical level, above your technical level, or maybe below your technical level, or maybe at a completely different, they're well-versed at a different technical tool than you are. If you can find ways to interact with those people through written communication as well as verbal communication. Also, there's a lot of opportunity for visual communication. All of those will help you become valuable if you're coming into a new workspace. The last thing that I'll add there, and I could probably go on about this one, is the problem solving and critical thinking, right? Can you approach a problem and first of all, not give up because you don't have a clue, right? You might not have a clue when you first look at a problem, but there are so many places to access resources in order to solve that problem. And usually for me, that starts with a Google search or talking to my colleagues, right? So start somewhere because people want to see that you're willing to take the steps and then follow through to solve a problem. In terms of the last part of that question, that is a very difficult thing to answer. And correct me if I got this wrong, but I think it was about the actual roles that people are hiring for. So I mentioned earlier that we did industry consultations as a part of creating our curriculum for our certificate. In that, it's a really tough thing to nail down because one, companies are using lots of different names for things. So Jan mentioned a lot of the roles that end in developer. That might be a little bit easier for Get Coding, and maybe that's still challenging, but for us, I think it's a lot, it's much more dispersed across industry companies and what they want to call it. But for coming out of our program specifically, we're looking at a lot of entry-level roles to be in rooms where you can be in conversations and offer advanced computing techniques as a solution. So I know that's a little bit wishy-washy. We have some of the roles I think listed on our website. But you know, research consultant, sort of specialist, you know, admin, what the one that we had was there. Anyway, I won't talk anymore on that because I'll let Eleanor and Jan jump in if they have anything to add.
I think that a lot of what Grace said holds true there. And for me, I'm like Johanna, when I started with SEM, I didn't have any tech skills, hardly at all. Like I had, I could answer an email and I could do some of the basic stuff, but I really started really from scratch. And unfortunately, I would have been one of those people, as Jan mentioned, who panicked when their printer stopped working. Like I'm guilty of that. But doesn't mean that I'm not capable to learn. And so for me, one of the biggest skills is curiosity and the willingness to be a lifelong learner, the resilience, like you said, not to back down from a problem, not to be afraid to ask for help when you need it. So communication is really, really big. And I think a lot of the soft skills that you may have from just being in the world of work and volunteering are transferable. And as Joanna said, you may not even realize. Can't hurt to try, always apply anyway. And you're selling yourself. So get to know yourself really well. Do some good self-reflection about what are your interests, what are your values, what are you really capable of? Where do you want to head? What are your goals? And knowing yourself and getting to know people as much as you can. Being around people, I think, makes you a good person to want to work with. Even if you're working from home and sometimes you're working on your own a lot, you will have to come into contact with people one way or another. Even if you're behind a screen and you do a lot of computer work, there are going to be people you will be involved with. So I think that people skills, soft skills apply to tech just as much as any other job that you might try. And that curiosity and that lifelong learning will drive you, because tech is changing all the time, to learn new things, to try new things, to be willing to move along and to lean into the change, even though change can be really hard sometimes, but to not give up and to just keep at trying, keep at applying, keep at searching, and keep networking and meeting people. I think that that's really important in any field, but in tech especially. Put yourself out there. It's hard to do also, all these things, but don't give up and keep trying. For us, in regards to different types of fields that you might end up working in when it comes to GIS, well, SEM, we have a bunch of GIS analysts and GIS specialists. We do environmental management quite a bit. So we work with energy companies and mining companies, for instance. We help them comply with like environmental regulations. And even a couple of our SEM employees who are biologists are now wanting to take our course next term, because they have data that they're collecting as far as, like, they do a bird survey or a bat survey or a water sampling or air quality testing, and can they map where they did their testing or where they're finding these creatures or lack of these creatures, what patterns are they noticing. And otherwise they would have to go to get someone else to make the map for them. But if they're a biologist who also has GIS skills, now that they can just make their own maps, and then you don't have to do as much of the back and forth and getting somebody to fix it and do it the way you want it. We get a lot of people who are applying for the course. We have a nurse who's doing the course this term who is in a remote area. She wants to be able to map healthcare outcomes and things. Are people getting good access to healthcare in remote places? We have another student who is working with Indigenous groups in South America. She wants to be able to advocate for Indigenous groups when negotiating with government there about land use claims. We have somebody even who owns their own business and is he sells vintage electronics, old Nintendos and stuff, and he wants to be able to map his customer base so that he can target his marketing, and he's not like sending out flyers or whatever to the wrong areas. I mean, it's so vast, you really can't imagine how many different ways that GIS can be used. We have somebody who is wanting to track forest fires when it comes to climate change, and so the temporal data that you're adding to the spatial data can be really important in like an emergency situation if you are having to respond very quickly and things are changing very quickly. Lots of first responders absolutely could be using it. There's almost no end to it, and it's just your own imagination what you could dream up and how you could have it. I think it could almost be applied to nearly every field, and there is a general rule of about 80% of data has like a spatial component to it. So everyone is using information now. It's an information age, and there's tons and tons of different jobs and fields, but like even a lot of people that we've been speaking to as guest speakers might be professors or at the university, for example, or they might be their own GIS consultants, and then they just go off and they're entrepreneurs. So there's tons and tons of opportunity there with it. It's just up to you. What do you want to do? What do you want to work in? How do you want your maps to change people's lives? And I don't know if Eric has anything he wants to add there.
No, that was great.
Okay, great. And maybe Jan, you want to add something?
Yeah, just a quick note. It's hard to say exactly, what tech companies are recruiting for, because there's so many different tech companies and so many different backgrounds and solving so many different problems in so many industries. But you're not going to be able to apply the skills that you're bringing and transition your career if you don't have a network. You can't do this in a vacuum. You need to get out there and meet people. You need to know about the local tech sector. TechNL has a great podcast. I think it's called The Edge something, and I'm blanking on it. Maybe Johanna, what was it?
I'm pulling out my podcast here now. This is shocking. I listened to every single one of them.
So it's not just me. Maybe it's the name of it.
No, it's cool. Okay, ready. Creators at the World's Edge. There we go.
Yeah. So there you go. Listen, get immersed in the tech sector. Go out to the events, speak with the people, because you're not going to be able to find the first opportunity at your home in a vacuum. Get out there, meet people, get to know the people that make up the tech sector.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because like technology is always changing. It's not that every company is not going to always be using the bleeding edge technology of tomorrow, right? Or that's happening. So there are definitely foundational skills that you're going to learn. But I think everyone mentioned this open mindset to learn. So you can, whatever point you enter tech, you have that skill level. You're never going to stay there. You're going to learn new skills. And so I think that openness to learn those new skills as you go and evolve, that's the real key there.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. I really like this question because I feel like in asking this question, we were able to cover a lot of the questions that I had. Like I'm looking through it now and I'm like, well, most of the questions seems to have been answered just as a result of this one question. But I think just maybe one final question that I would just throw out there is, and we get asked this a lot. And it's, if we have people who are listening today who have experience in education in non-technical fields, what would you say to these folks who might be considering changing their career trajectory to one in tech? And I know that Johanna and some of the speakers sort of touched on this, but if we can maybe just all go around and quickly speak on about this, because we do get asked this. I currently have a fully grown career. I feel like it's much easier for folks who are just starting out to easily say, oh, I want to get into tech, and this is the path that I have chosen. But for someone who maybe has always worked in a completely different industry, what does that transition look like for them?
Sure, I can kick this one off. So I work a lot with equity deserving folks as they kind of enter the tech sector, and how I view it at least is kind of three main buckets. Bucket one, so if you want to enter sales in technology, do you have any previous sales experience? It doesn't need to be in the tech sector, but do you have any previous experience in the domain of sales? Next, do you have any tech sector experience? And then the next is, do you have any industry experience? Or I'll say that differently. If you're a project manager and you want to enter the tech sector, then you have project management domain experience. And now it's a bonus if you have tech experience, but probably people entering the tech sector are not gonna have that. So that's probably a no. And then industry experience. So because tech companies can be focused on a lot of different industries. So if you have PM experience, but you have no tech experience, but you want to work for a technology company that maybe sells into an industry that you work in, then you actually are like sitting pretty starting out, right? Like there's some that are heavier lifts to get into the tech sector. So you have no domain experience, you're just starting out, you have no tech sector experience, and you don't have much industry experience, right? That's a bit of a heavier lift. Then you really need to kind of thread the needle on what your experience has been in, or you might need to upskill a little bit. You might need to do some more training. But that is also applicable for folks who are in the tech sector. When you're in the tech sector, you want to move around. People feel like if they've only worked in, let's say, this is like education technology, they don't know that they can actually jump and go work in oil and gas technology as well if they're a project manager or whatever that may be. Like once you're in the sector, you can move around a little bit more because you have that tech experience. But when you're looking to enter the tech sector for the very first time, then you need to look at your domain experience, like what skills do you have from previous jobs, and what industry experience do you have? So for instance, I had proposal experience and sales experience, which would be, I guess, my domain. I had no tech sector experience, and I did have a bit of oil and gas experience, which let me go into that particular job. So that was my kind of entry point. So anyways, when I chat with folks, I'm always just kind of interested in what that looks like, because you can really kind of move around a little bit quicker depending. But I mean, Jan talked about the teacher who went to work for an education tech company. That makes total sense because she has industry experience in the education industry, right? And so there's a lot of different ways you can go in, like someone who's a optometrist is probably going to help solve optometry problems. I'm not going to go in and solve like an optometry problem. That's not my industry experience, right? And so anyways, there's a lot of kind of different ways you can look at it there.
Awesome. Thank you, Joanna. I'm going to see if any one of our speakers has anything else to add to that before we take the final question. I promise, the final question. Yes, Eleanor, please go ahead.
I do. I think that every experience you have is leading to something, and you may not know that while you're having that experience, but everything counts. There is nothing that, no effort goes to waste. Every volunteer experience you do, you're meeting people, you're exercising people skills, every job you do. I have worked in many sectors. I have, as a young person, worked in retail and customer service and tourism. And I worked one time, believe it or not, at a campground cleaning outhouses. Terrible, horrible. You think that that's got to be the worst job. That was not the worst job I ever had. That was one of the better ones when I look back on it. Not the outhouse task itself. That was pretty painful sometimes, but there were other parts of that job, and I learned from it, and I learned what I'm capable of and what I can do and what I don't want to do. And every bit of it adds up to something. Everything leads you to somewhere. My background was in education, and before that it was childcare and tutoring, and that led me to teaching, and then that led me to science interpretation. And because I had been a substitute teacher, I had been used to really being very flexible and adaptable and thinking on my feet. Even when I was on an improv team in high school, that helped me with those little skills. My extracurriculars added to it. And then that led me to science interpretation. Now I'm running field trips for schools, different subjects, different ages. I'm back thinking on my feet. So it really laid the foundation for that. I, as a science interpreter, did some work with a giant floor map of Newfoundland and Labrador. Now I'm helping to teach a course about mapping with adult learners. It's a different thing. It's very different, but there is some overlap there. So where can you see the overlaps, and how can you see that this could help me get to here? It's a little lily pad or a stepping stone. And I'm often surprised actually when I look at a resume and I interview somebody, because I've had the opportunity to do that in a couple of different jobs, that people don't see their own connections when I pose them with a question like, tell me about your previous experience. How does it make you a good candidate for this position? They don't connect the dots. And I often in an interview will say to them, so when you worked here, do you think that that gives you skills in this way that could be usable in this position? And then you see the light dawn. I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe I could. And so just before you go to an interview, do think about that. Like, how could this, even though it's not the exact same thing, help and be transferable? How could this be something that, like, if it doesn't have to be totally the same, because you're not applying for the same job you already did. It's a new job. It's the next phase. It's another step. But those things that have brought you along will add to it. So trying to make those connections for yourself before you head into the interview situation, so that you can right off the hop when they ask, say, oh, I think that this matches with that, and this is going to set me up well to be able to do my next challenge, you know.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Eleanor. So we're just going to take the final question, trying to be mindful of our time here. So the final question, and this is from one of the participants, is how do you see L&D, and I'm guessing that's learning and development opportunities, evolve in the tech sector? So I'm just going to throw that open to anyone who wants to answer that.
So like in the,
Sorry, Eric.
you can go ahead, Grace. No, you're good.
I just wanted to clarify that is once you're in the tech sector, the opportunity for professional development. I'm assuming that's the question, rather than learning and development opportunities getting into tech. From my perspective, I see this as continuously evolving to more and more opportunities, because it has to. Especially, you know, as we're growing significantly in tech in Newfoundland and Labrador. I think we're constantly it's either trying to get ahead or to keep up with whatever industry you're involved with. So I know particularly our workplace will have a menu of opportunities that you can take advantage of each year, and that are well supported for learning new software or new technical topics that we need to understand better ourselves, so that we can then support researchers and those within industry. So the other thing that I found with that is that if you see an opportunity that you would like to take advantage of, talk to your employer, talk to your boss, make a good argument for why you think that is a good opportunity for you and for your organization or your company. Because if you do have something to stand behind in that, then chances are they may take you up on that, because I think you have to keep up, and it is ever evolving. So I think one of the best ways that you can do that and to look out for yourself and your career growth is to, not only say yes when they come up, but seek out those opportunities yourself.
My little piece there was just on, instructional development, Desiree, that you mentioned that there. So I guess quick note on that. I think overall, a lot of training related stuff is sort of transitioning to online delivery. You're probably aware of that already, but that's what one part of what I'm doing at SEM is a lot of online training, design related things. So that's bringing in multimedia and then learning management systems and whatnot. So I think in the tech sector as well, there'd be a lot of like internal instructional design opportunities, like sort of online training development as well, in terms of like interactions, like designing interactions and those sort of things as well. I'm sure you're familiar with Articulate 360 and Storyline, but definitely stuff to check out if you're doing pushing into more online stuff for training in the tech sector there.
I'll hop in real quick as well. I think there's a lot of learning and development happening, as everyone has mentioned. But there's some very interesting things happening. For example, Verafin has had an academy, internal academy to help them train their own people, which they have instructional designers for, based on my understanding. Am I correct in saying that? Yeah. I know Genoa Design has had internal academies, so a lot of the local companies, and the bigger the company, the more actually internal learning and development happens internally. As well as there's a lot of tech companies that offer training as a product. For example, Virtual Marine, where Jackie, one of our students, ultimately went and got a job as an instructional designer. That's part of the product. Blue Drop, there's other companies in Newfoundland that do that. So there's actually a variety, even internal and external instructional design and learning development.
And I'm not sure specific because I don't know the L&D space that well, but I know generally there's also I would do what Grace said as well. Ask your folks internally if they'll get you some professional development if you can see any that you like. The other piece is the self-learning piece. There's a lot of free courses out there now, so I'm not sure. Like Google offers free certificates or programs. Coursera, there's a lot of kind of I think more free options for online learning as well for professional development that didn't exist before.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Big thank you to our speakers, Eric, Jan, Grace, Johanna, Eleanor, everyone. Really, thank you so much for taking out time to be a part of this. I'm sure that our participants have learned so much. I have learned so much personally, so I'm sure that's the same. And also thank you to Kendra. Kendra is the one behind the scene, making sure everything, we have a smooth event today. Kendra is our operations administrator. So thank you so much, Kendra. Just to say that we will have this recording. It's, this session has been recorded. And so for everyone who is registered, you can just go in and you should be able to access it before end of day today. We would also post this on our YouTube, but primarily you should be able to just go in to the registration page and just access the recording. And we also have a final session next week. And then for that session, we'd have our very own, we'll have WRDC speaking about the OTT program, would have the LEAP method speaking about their sales program. And then we're also going to have Mon talking about their career tech program. These are all part of the Find Your Future in Tech project. This is a very, very good opportunity. I think one of the things that one of the speakers said last week that really stayed with me was, these programs can be, everyone should be looking for one or two of these programs to be a part of, because this is a really, really huge opportunity for, for our province, for everyone. So if you'd like to still be a part of that, you can definitely just go on there and register, and we'll send you the link for that. And we would also have surveys sent out. So we want to know how we did for this session, and for those who attended last week's session as well. We will be sending out the survey after all of the sessions are completed next week. So if you see that link, please take out, it would just be a few minutes. Just tell us how we did and what we can do better for the next TechConnect. I think that's all that I have, and that's all the time that we have today. Again, thank you so much to everyone, our speakers and the participants that took out time to be a part of this today. Thank you so much. All right. Well, oh, and sorry, if anyone has any questions about any of the programs, you can certainly send your question to me. I'm just going to put my email in the group chat, sorry. All right, I'm the project manager. So if you have any questions, if I can answer, I would definitely send it to the speakers to try to get you that answer. And that's my email in the chat. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Aisha. Bye.
Thank you.